want to speak this morning about desolation as it's related to maturity. If we look at maturity simply as the ability to negotiate our own needs, and then as a graduated path, we start with the ability to negotiate our own needs, then we move towards the ability to negotiate our own needs without it being at somebody else's expense. And then eventually we're able to understand and advocate for other people's needs in addition to our own. And of all of the different lists of needs that I've come across, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Ken Wilber's series of maturation and needs, the spiral dynamics needs that come through, the most comprehensive list that I've seen of needs is related to Marshall Rosenberg's work in nonviolent communication. He's got quite a comprehensive list of needs. And there's also a really lovely story about Marshall Rosenberg, which I think is actually helpful, particularly when we're talking about maturation. I was living in Colorado Springs, and he was giving a talk in Boulder, Colorado, and I went to go visit and listen to him speaking. And he was talking about his daughter, who at that time, when he was referring to the story, was 9 years old. And his daughter was beautiful and perfect and pleased everybody. And as a psychologist, this was not good news. He would have some concern about how this was going to actually unfold. So for a psychologist who's interested in a person coming into their own autonomy and their own ability to articulate their own needs, you know, a girl who is perfect and pleasing everybody would be cause for concern and consideration. So he tells the story that his daughter, his 9-year-old perfect and beautiful and pleasing everybody daughter, grew into a teenager, and she was going to a school, and in the school there was a dress code. And one day, the principal of the school called up Marshall Rosenberg and was absolutely fit to be tied, and invited, or rather demanded, Marshall Rosenberg to come down to a one-to-one with the principal, because the principal was alarmed and distressed by the daughter's behavior. So Marshall went to the office and spoke to the principal and was having to keep himself restrained from his automatic or natural response, which was to smile from ear to ear. And the reason for this was that his beautiful, perfect, pleasing everybody daughter had let rip a number of F-bombs to the principal when the principal confronted her and told her that she was violating dress code by coming to the school with a pair of overalls on. And what Marshall was rejoicing in was not her rudeness, but that she graduated from not attending to her own needs to this, what he coined as the obnoxious phase of attending to her own needs, but it being at somebody else's expense. Now, one of the things about this story that I actually love is that I have never seen anything written in any scripture anywhere which talks about, in the path of maturation, there is or can be a period of time where we move out of suppressing our own needs. And the result of that is that we are hypervigilant in being able to get our own needs met, but we do it at other people's expense. And we can be rude, we can be harsh, we can be lacking grace, we can be lacking skill. And as a developmental phase, this is actually an improvement over not being able to get our own needs met. And so what I love about this is it places into context in a developmental stage that there are times where we are lacking grace and we are socially inappropriate. And that's actually a sign of development. To move out of not being able to advocate for our own needs to being able to advocate our own needs at somebody else's expense. Eventually, we want to be able to advocate our own needs without it being at somebody else's expense. And the most mature level that we can aim for is not only to advocate for our own needs, but to understand and to advocate for other needs of people who have diverse, different experiences other than our own. So what I love about Marshall Rosenberg's lists is that his needs include the needs for connection, for physical well-being, for honesty, for play, for peace, for autonomy, and for meaning. And within the list of connection, that's the longest list of needs, fits under the need for connection. And I love it. I love that it's so articulated and so clear, the many different expressions of connection that we hunger for. And when we get those needs met, it's a very different experience than either when we don't, or when we can't, or when we are not able to find that kind of connection that we long for. So in this process of our own maturation, where we're moving from being able to navigate our own needs, doing it without it being at somebody else's expense, doing it in a way where we can advocate for other people's needs at the same time. I want you to spend some time, I want you to take out a piece of paper and just jot down these titles: connection, physical well-being, honesty, peace, autonomy, and meaning. And I'd like you to spend some time with each of these categories and seeing if you can identify for yourself what your own needs are in each of these areas. Take some time with it, because the more we know what our needs are, the more we're going to be able to advocate for them. And that's really important. If we don't know what our needs are, we can't advocate for them. We can't actually speak up. We can't make choices that help us get our needs met. So the first thing is to begin to get a sense of what our own needs are. And if you want, please feel welcome to look up on the website Marshall Rosenberg's needs and use all of the needs that he has delineated in his work in nonviolent communication, and see from that list which of those needs are relevant and arising for you. So take some time with that and see what you discover. Now, you might want to pause this. That's fine if you want to pause this video and come back when you've made this list. And I have another question for you. Take one of these needs, and I want you to think of a time recently when you did not advocate for it being met. You weren't able to. You did not stand up for yourself. The need was not met. What happened? Where was it? Who were you with? When did it take place? And what was the result? What were the things that you felt in your body? What were the things that you felt in your heart? What were the thoughts that you had? What were the beliefs that you had about yourself as a result of not having that need met? Now, I'd like you to, when you finish with this, to consider a circumstance where you were able to advocate for a need getting met. Think of what happened. Who were you with? What was the need? When did it take place? And as you bring your mind to that memory, think about how your body felt. Think about the quality of tension in your muscles. Do you remember what your breath was like? Can you remember the mood that you were feeling? Do you remember what your thoughts were? So when you see what happens when your needs are met in contrast to when they're not met, how does that influence your interest in knowing what your needs are and being able to advocate for them?